Welcome to Moving in Stereo, a history of the Cars, produced for The Source by Flamingo Productions, The Directors Company, and Silver Linings, Inc. I'm your host, Lisa Carlin. In 1977, when there wasn't much new music happening in America, a band formed in Boston, The Cars, and quickly became one of the most influential members of the new wave.
I say, I'm moving in stereo.
I guess you're just what I needed. Just what I needed. I needed someone to feel. Let the good times roll. Let the good times roll. Let the good times roll. Here she comes again. I kinda like the way it skips. 'Cause she's my best friend's girl. She's my best friend's girl. She used to be mine. She's so fine. She said to leave it to me. Leave it to me. Everything will be alright. Be alright. She said to leave it to me. Leave it to me. Everything will be alright. Since you're gone, tonight you get strange. Since you're gone, thrown it all away. I can't help it, everything's a mess. I can't help it, you're so treacherous. It felt so right, just like a sharp midnight. Then you said, with me, it's touch and go. Oh, touch and go. Be my baby, baby. Be my baby. Dance all night, play all day. Don't let nothing get in the way. Dance all night, keep the beat. Don't you worry about two, let me shake it up. Shake it up. Shake it up. Shake it up. Shake it up.
The Cars were assembled by a songwriter-guitarist from the Midwest, Ric Ocasek. Ocasek had put together a number of bands and had worked with a variety of musicians, but in 1977, he found the combination that worked. With Ocasek as songwriter, vocals, and rhythm guitarist, Elliot Easton on lead guitar, Ben Orr on vocals and bass, David Robinson on drums, and Greg Hawkes on keyboards, the Cars started. Ric Ocasek.
One of the reasons the Cars eventually found themselves as the Cars is because Ben and I had played for 8 years. Elliot and I had played for 5 years. Greg and I had played for 5 years before the Cars. We already had been through that crap of how do you work the personalities out. You know, David being the newest member, you know, fit because his musical taste was so close, you know, to ours. And when we came together as the Cars, we didn't have to figure out each other. We knew, I mean, we had already played songs together. We had been in other bands. And basically everybody said, look, these are the songs and here's the way we really should do them. And this is really the way, you know, it sort of fits. And he knew me and I knew him and it just worked.
Cars drummer David Robinson explains that everything the band did before the Cars contributed to their music when they formed the Cars.
We just sort of took a lot of parts from stuff that we had already all done, a lot of ideas and influences, and started another new band. I don't know, it's one of those things that's hard to describe why you can do it with some people and you can't. You know, I've been in bands with different kinds of musicians, maybe some better, some worse than people in the Cars, but it's got to be something else, and that's like the hardest thing to find because you can't tell what it is, and you can't go look for it. Everybody has to start playing, and you have to hear it, and we had it when we started playing.
And the Cars' keyboard player, Greg Hawkes, recalls the state of mind that the 5 members of the new band were in when they started out.
Everybody was at the point in their development where they were really serious about, you know, total commitment to a project. And I think that's really what pulled it together was, you know, everybody was totally committed to the Cars.
Rick Ocasek, on those early days when the Cars were just getting started.
We were pretty used to being rejected a lot, or used to having a small audience of cult followers, which kept us going, I'm sure. You know, people that would appreciate the music kept us going. There were certain people that always showed up at clubs, and you know, that always keeps you going. It only takes one person to say it's great, you know, you can live on that for a week.
It's a long road from the local club skit to a national tour, but according to the Cars bass player, Ben Orr, it's still the audience that keeps you going.
I like the road a lot. It's nice to go out once every couple of years and shake off the dust, as it were. It's nice. Performing on a stage makes the day worthwhile, actually, because you have an outlet. At least it is for me. A lot of young guys want to go out on the road and see what it's like, so we got a chance. In great detail, first few years.
And while every new band is searching for success, it's really the music that has to be the important thing. The Cars lead guitar player Elliot Easton says it's always been the music that's kept him involved.
You know, I just always sort of played guitar in bands, hoping that one of them would be successful, and this one has been. But I don't think it's really changed my attitude about music or life or anything like that. I'm, you know, obviously very happy that it's so successful. Having had what happened go down in the last couple of years, I don't know what it would be like, you know, not having that kind of excitement going on. But I expect I'd just be playing guitar.
The Cars' first album was a big hit, almost from the instant it came out. And according to Rick Ocasek, it was a surprise to them all.
Well, with the Cars selling a lot of records right off the bat like that, it was a bit of a change. It was definitely something to be totally accepted all of a sudden. But it seemed to appear when the Cars formed and played that, unlike any of the other bands, there was a much larger following of people, and there was much more attention paid to it. It didn't seem like unfounded.
The Cars, like every other band, have paid their dues, but when they recorded their first album, they became an overnight sensation, and Cars drummer David Robinson says they really didn't expect it.
I don't think we ever envisioned, like, our first album would sell 4 million copies. We don't know why it happened, other than the fact that it was a little bit road tested here by playing in bars and playing at clubs and stuff. You know, we did well, but that doesn't always sell records and doesn't really mean anything.
According to Cars bass player Ben Orr, it all happened so fast, the band really didn't have time to wonder why.
The Cars just sort of happened without anybody really realizing it. I didn't really realize it. You know, being through a number of bands like I was, you know, it seemed like the next best shot. So we had to try, and it just happened like that real fast. You didn't really have time to think about it. I didn't really have time to think about it.
That first album, The Cars, established the band as leaders of American rock and roll. And though all the Cars songs are written by Rick Ocasek, according to keyboard player Greg Hawkes, the group functions as a collaborative.
This is a band, you know. It is a band that plays Rick's songs, but it's a band nevertheless, and there is a definite band feel.
As a musical form, rock and roll is now in its fourth decade. Many of today's rockers started playing when they were just young kids. All 5 members of the Cars grew up on rock and roll, from Buddy Holly to the Beatles, and most of them were in bands before they were in high school. For all of them, there were no alternatives to being a musician. Rick Ocasek.
I started getting obsessed with music when I was about 9 or 10, and I started playing guitar when I was about 14. It seemed to come easy to me always. I didn't have to try hard to learn how to play guitar. I never picked up other instruments. I never had any musical training. I never wanted musical training, and never felt uncomfortable not having it. In fact, always felt it was an advantage to not have it, especially if I could learn it by ear and learn the things I wanted to instead of the things I was told to. And I found that any time I would try to work outside that musical thing, that I would get so frustrated that I would abandon it very quickly. And I never lasted more than a few months at any particular outside adventure. I always wrote, because it seemed to me like before anything else, that's the thing when I started doing music, it seemed like the only thing that I really particularly cared to was write songs. I didn't see it from any other level. I never wanted to be like a great musician. It seemed like a vehicle to me, holding that guitar, and getting those words out and writing songs.
For the Cars' lead guitar player, Elliot Easton, there was never any question that his instrument was the guitar.
Just around the time I was becoming conscious, the guitar was becoming the most popular instrument of society, the most instantly portable instrument. You couldn't like put a piano on your back and go hiking. The guitar to me was like, I felt like, you know, I knew something that everybody maybe didn't know about something. It was like, you know, it's cloudy at that point. You're feeling like very intense feelings about something, but you don't think you should be taking it that seriously because you're just a little kid, and nobody else thinks you should be taking it that seriously, you know, and you're still afraid to bring bad grades home and things like that. But inside, you're pretty much the same kind of rock and roll soul that you eventually grow into.
And for bass player Ben Orr, rockabilly was an early major influence.
I think I was born a musician, actually. I didn't really have that much choice, you know. Had no interest in anything else. I didn't really like school that much. But, you know, like I grew up on the early radio stuff with Buddy Holly and Big Bopper and Carl Perkins and Elvis and even a little Johnny Cash thrown in there. A whole lot of rockabilly. I started out playing, actually, rockabilly.
Greg Hawkes is the keyboard player for the Cars, but Greg also occasionally plays saxophone on Cars albums and is proficient on a number of instruments.
I started out with taking piano lessons when I was like in 2nd or 3rd grade for a few years, then kind of switched over and played clarinet in the school band. But it wasn't really until I first heard the Beatles that something really clicked, and I thought, yeah, I want to do that too. And within like 2 months, I talked my parents into buying me an electric guitar, and then I played guitar in bands all through high school. The piano I had dropped altogether, played it occasionally, and sort of got an interest in it around 16 or 17, and I kind of fell into keyboards because, you know, those were sounds that I sort of wanted to hear, so I had to learn how to play them. I probably play other instruments better than I play keyboards. Strangely enough, flute is probably the one I play technically the best, in my own opinion. But keyboards I'll always play because it's the best tool to compose with, for me anyway. You know, synthesizers and stuff is where my ear is the best, really.
The lure of being a rock and roll musician wasn't always a totally serious thing. Drummer David Robinson.
I started playing when I was about 15. I was going to be a guitar player, but I ended up playing drums. I don't know why. All of my friends were starting bands. We wanted to be like the Ventures, and then when the Beatles came out, we wanted to be like, you know, the Stones, Beatles, and we all wanted to be popular at school and meet girls and grow our hair long. Didn't really work the way I had planned, but it was fun. It wasn't a real job back then. Even though people would get paid, I assume. I didn't know anybody would get paid, but it was mostly for fun. And then you would just wait for your real life to start with a real job and real money and like that, and it never happened. So that's why I stuck to it. It just, you know, I tried regular jobs, and none of them were as easy or as much fun. So it became, you know, professional.